Hi, name's Sticky Keys. I'm here from channel YouTube. Hi, I'm Sticky Keys from YouTube. Okay, let's just go by that. Hi, I'm Sticky Keys from YouTube. And if you're clicking on this video, you probably saw the title, right? I said in the title that the Suicideboys have a new issue. What's that issue? I think for me it's a question of authenticity, right? Authenticity, and wasn't mean to be a part and to be a fan of the Suicideboys. So to really start this off, we have to start off somewhere right, okay? So it kind of goes back to really the origins of their music. We obviously know that their music's been quite dark. The Kill Yourself trilogies, the I no longer fear, the Razor Guarding My Heel, that stuff, right? All that stuff, dark as hell, emotionally intense, you know. Clyde, for instance. Oh. But these songs are kind of slowly but surely not showing up in their segments. Obviously speaking, the boys no longer feel attached to that type of music anymore. And they don't really want to do it, you know? They don't want to just keep this up. They don't feel that way anymore. They no longer feel suicidal. They no longer feel this sort of, like, impending doom, per se, that was very evident in their music. We can go back to, really, this starts off in the 2020s, right? We talk about the pandemic, when everyone was really feeling the shit. So, we come to 2022, pandemic, well, let's go back, pandemic, precisely. Pandemic itself, right? Rough time. We're all feeling it. The blow up of Into Those I Love, right? Take Me Home, blah, 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 blah. They really ran with that song after that blow up, right? They really liked it. They put on a lot of their set lists throughout their concerts. I think to really just say thank you to the people that were their fans, right? But following that, they released to Sing Me a Lullaby, which I honestly feel is probably one of their best albums since post 2020. I think altogether and all in all, it's my favorite. It really does stand out just because musically speaking, I think it lyrically kind of touches upon all the aspects that I thought the Suicideboys, right? That mental health concern, that inability to connect, aspects of violence at times, right? But the point being, Suicideboys were really feeling it still, 2022. Then we kind of have the slow but certain kind of change their music, I guess, per se. I don't really know how to describe it, but following really, what was it called? I No Longer Fear the Razor Guarding My Heel Part 5, or which I thought was an amazing piece, by the way, but they never released it as LP, so please do eventually. Not the point. I think that was their last piece, where it was really emotionally intensive to me, and that stuck to me. It gave me that sound signature that screams Suicideboys. I don't know what that means, though. I don't know what that means. I felt something with it. But that doesn't really matter right now, because I think what we have to talk about is why I've been feeling that they've been kind of changing. And perhaps significantly so that there can no longer be called. I don't know if I could. I'm not the same. I guess I don't know where they can go next, right? So it all kind of. I feel like it kind of starts with the clothing scandal, if you guys remember that. A few years back, where basically the boys got this group rightfully arrested, don't get me wrong, legally speaking, for selling their merchandise that was fake outside of one of their venues or something like that, or transporting. I think it was actually transport, and they busted it with the police's help. Now, the Suicideboys talk down to the police all the time, right? It's kind of like, you know, Ruby Such a Mislet, blah blah, piglets, blah blah, right? I don't know how you go about saying that and then helping the cops. And then also, if we go further back, you know, the Suicideboys were at a time doing that to make money, right? They all started off there. They were really hustling back then to try to make money, selling merchandise of artists that they weren't, you know, non-official merchandise per se, copies, you know. So that to me kind of signaled like, oh, interesting. And then I think really with the Billboard interview recently with Thy Kingdom Come, the release of that as well. Like musically speaking, I don't feel Thy Kingdom Come is I don't feel like Thy Kingdom Come has the same emotional like turmoil that you find in the other works. But still, it doesn't have that same emotional appeal to me. I don't find it to be something I'm actually really interested in listening to. There's a few songs in there that are good, like Monochrome is pretty good, but I honestly I kind of like the teasers more than the album itself, you know, and I think that's probably going to be a hot take, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. And this all really leads us to the Billboard interview. The Billboard interview where they talk about what's next for the Suicideboys. Right, and they're talking about, towards the end, there's two things actually we should probably mention. The fact they actually confirm, you know, the Suicide Pact, like, not conspiracy, but the story that's been really all over the net the past few, like, not all over the net, but like, this kind of like latent story that people were thinking about was like, I don't know if it's real. Does anyone know if it's real? It might be real. It might not be real. Ooh. It might be fake. But the whole Suicide Pact by 30 was that Scrim and, you know, Ruby were going to kill themselves by 30 if the music didn't work out. And obviously the music worked out because they're still around. But, you know, I thought, as a fan, that it was probably fake. Another one of those stories that's been misinterpreted and or, you know, told by fans just because, you know, the boys not entertain, but enable that sort of storytelling just to exist because they don't never usually unconfirm that type of stuff. But they confirmed it. That was real. Apparently that was genuinely all real. You know, and that really does bring up like a question of like, it really does bring up a question of like, okay, so that's where they're at. But now they're talking about, you know, changing the name and saving souls, which is interesting, right? They're talking about really living now, but the Suicideboys weren't formed on that basis, which thusly proposes this sort of like kind of existential crisis of identity. The Suicideboys are no longer suicidal. They're well off now. They have money. We can't ignore that. They're rich now. They have access to all these things. They have partners for some... Scrim does, at least. We know that. Who knows about Ruby? He's still going through it. He's still smoking. All that other stuff. But he's not doing... He's not, like... He was never that bad off compared to Scrim, I think. Mentally speaking, right? Scrim was really going through it. So, like... Now that they're all going in this kind of baseline of good, where are they now? What's next for the Suicideboys? Can they really be suicidal anymore, or will they just have to change their music? I mean, we've been seeing right now with where Scrim and Ruby have been doing their own like kind of music on the side. Don't get me wrong, they're still the Suicideboys, but they've been doing their own music on their side, right? Ruby reaching back into that punk rock sound, and Scrim still keeping up with his kind of rap type thing. I don't know really describe it. I'm more interested in the Ruby stuff. So, anyways, but. Point being, I guess my main concern now, and the thing I've been rambling on about the past few minutes, sorry, thank you for listening if you have been, is that post-Kingdom Come, where do they go? What do they talk about? Can they be the Suicideboys? Do they want to be the Suicideboys, right? I think quite evidently speaking to that narrative of that they don't identify with their old selves anymore, at least their old music, is that they took off, they took off, what's that song? And to those I love from the set list for this year. And just talking this year's concerts. And we haven't even addressed this year's concerts as being, like, a massive, like, real mess. They haven't been good at all. They've been kind of messy in terms of, like, the audience being intense, the music being weird. I've been hearing, I was reading on it a while back, and there's some concerns that maybe it's the the venues themselves and not the boys, you know? Which is, I hope so. But at the same time, though, you know, the boys have been having some issues. I think. You can really argue they've been having issues. With at least, like, I guess within their own group, right? Like, I can't remember which member it was that left, but there was a member that left because the rumor was that, you know, they weren't really getting a lot of publicity from G59. G59 is known for the Suicideboys, but there's other artists that are signed to it. And that really does make it a question of, like, you know, I guess inability to handle that even, in some sense. But I don't know. I guess I'm rambling on here, but point being, where do they go? What do the Suicideboys do next? Can they be the Suicideboys, or can they not? And I just want to leave on that note. And I wanted to get some... I just wanted to put this out there. That's why it's really rough right now. I'm not really good at this format. I'll probably get better over time, but... I guess the question now for me is, really as a fan, is like, where do they go next? Can the Suicideboys keep this up? The fans have changed, obviously, right, with time. The Suicideboys have become more professional in terms of their handling of everything. They're no longer entertaining their old identities, right? They're no longer this full self-destructive character. They're no longer in the psychosis, at least for Scrim. So, I guess this comes down to a main question that we have with rappers and drill artists back in the day. So I want to leave it as a story, I guess. Not to say that twice. I think I did. But... So, there is this thing within drill that will kind of apply directly to Scrim and every other artist, Scrim and Ruby for Suicideboys, is that oftentimes back when drill was really popular, the drill artists got their fame through their authenticity. What does that mean? Authenticity through their ability to perform violence, or to hypothetically perform violence. That's why you were seeing like all those certain situations, like, you know, drill artists going to other drill artists' blocks and saying, your block's quiet as fuck, you know, and no one's active out here, no one's posted up, nothing's happening out here, and they would try to catch these artists lacking and then, you know, commit violence upon them. But by doing this, they show that, yeah, we're legitimate, we're actual, you know, about this life, and we're not bullshitting, we're dead ass. Likewise, the Suicideboys really build up their authenticity off this mentality that, like, we're really feeling this shit. We're really not that happy. We're suffering. We're struggling to be, you know, be human. We're struggling to just exist in this world, and like that's where they got their authenticity from. And that's the main concern here for me, is that the Suicideboys no longer have that sense of, like, no longer are suicidal. They're well off. They're rich, like, they're rich guys now. The Suicideboys have wealth. They're healthy. They're doing amazing for themselves. They have economic prowess. They have these concerts that are filled up to an extent. They're still acting like they're still somewhat underground, weirdly enough, even though they're making shit tons of money as well, right? They own their own label. They're talking about retirement, right? In some senses, at least the Billboard thing. They've changed their narrative. Scrim's now gotten more religious than ever. You know, instead of saying that during that one song, what's it called? I forget what it's called. I forget. It was from the Kill Yourself saga. But last year it was, you know, instead, in 2024, 3? Basically when they were switching out from either you might hear Clyde or that one song, but during that song, he, instead of saying, Lucifer, please come save me, he says, Jesus Christ or some shit like that. Please come save me. So, obviously, Scrim's on this now religious venture. And he's trying to, you know, at least talk about God and this thing is, like, saving him. And maybe you could argue he's trying to convert. Who knows? But the point being, the Suicideboys aren't counterculture now, in some sense. They're not fully counterculture. They're now a part of it. They're now embedded. They're now a part of this economic elite, per se. So, like, they're no longer dying. dying in the trenches and really feeling it. They're well off. So so here I am, rambling, but I'm gonna stop here. Where do they go next? Is really the question. And can we even call them the Suicideboys anymore? I don't know. That's where I'm at. Alright. Thanks for my ramble. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I hope we can have an actual, if you're gonna be in the comments, let's have a, civil conversation about this. A genuine one. I come as a fan, first and foremost. I'm not trying to bash down on them, but I feel like sometimes, yeah. But anyways, point being, thanks for listening. I'm gonna call it here.